Welcome to the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society. Welcome to ITSPmagazine. Let's face it, the future is now. We're living in a connected cyber society, and we need to stop ignoring it or pretending that it's not affecting us. Join us as we explore how humanity arrived at this current state of digital reality and what it means to live amongst so much technology and data. Knowledge is power, now more than ever.
Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io. BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com.
Marco,
Sean.
remember that time?
Oh yeah.
Think about it.
I think about it all the time. Is that time in that place?
It was in that place.
Yeah, all the way there.
All the way there. It was a few minutes to get there.
With all that food.
And it was a time. There was a lot of food actually. But
yeah.
I go where the food is. So.
Yeah, well, that one is a great place for food. You can try everything you want, and you even try some disgusting stuff that I would never try. But
you didn't follow me the whole way down my food.
Not in the rabbit hole. No. Not in the food rabbit hole.
I'm not afraid.
I have some standards.
I'll go for it. Standards.
So what's that place? Singapore.
Well, that place in particular is Singapore, and I think Asia Pacific in general is just a phenomenal region.
Oh yeah,
with loads of things, and if I'm not eating food, I'm diving, looking at food underwater as they swim by me, which I did on the east coast of Australia at one point.
There you go.
Which was always fun. But we're not here to talk about eating and diving.
No, because that time is actually that time that we were at RSA conference in Singapore, and we met Charity. And she's back. We've been in touch since. I'm thinking it's 3 years ago, probably.
Hi, guys. It's good to be back.
Hi, Charity. I always really remember that conversation and a few others that I don't know, for some reason that event was quite magical. Maybe because it wasn't that busy like the RSA here in the United States. It was more manageable. And you're kind of surrounded by, again, a different culture, a different environment. Maybe that's what it is. But a lot of things happened since, right?
Man, COVID happened right after that, right?
Yeah, pretty much. A few months after that.
The world is a different place now than it was back then, a few years ago.
It sure is. It sure is.
Yeah, you look back at the pictures and they change dramatically in what the scenery looks like.
Yeah.
Not only at a personal level, though, but even if we want to start talking about on this channel, which is Redefining Society, a lot of things have changed on the societal level, too, like politics and, cybercrime hasn't stopped. We haven't completely stopped it yet.
Ransomware has been topping the headlines.
Yeah, the train's still running.
Yeah.
Those tracks are continuing to be placed in front of the train as well.
Yeah. So let's do this, Charity. We've done a few podcasts together, and that was a while back. So how about starting with a little introduction about yourself, what you do, which is fascinating. And for our audience that maybe haven't heard any of our conversation, and then we dive into, I don't know, what you're most interested in now about what's happening in the world of threats and security.
Sounds good. My name is Charity Wright. I'm a threat intelligence analyst at Recorded Future. I currently work on the geopolitical intelligence team. So pretty exciting. We monitor all major world events going on and all types of different intelligence related to how are nations, how's their relationships, how are they communicating with each other, but also just societal stuff. So I'm really excited to be here on this show. My background was U.S. Army. I was a Chinese linguist and intelligence analyst at NSA. So that's how I got started in the intelligence sector, and I just fell in love with it and decided to come over to the private sector and work for cyber threat intelligence teams. So I have some experience analyzing malware and nation state, threat groups and hacking activity. And now I get to return to my roots of really analyzing international relations.
It's a super interesting space, and I want to thank you again, Charity, for joining me in my class at Pepperdine, for sharing some of your thoughts on threat intelligence and threat hunting. And I know the classmates enjoyed that conversation. And one thing I remember from that, which I think is relevant for this conversation, is I think early days, at least my perspective, early days of cybersecurity, information security, was trying to reverse engineer things. How is something working so that we can then identify it at scale and hopefully put countermeasures or controls or protections in place. And it seems to me that information at a societal level is much more open. Now, I don't know, maybe you still have to reverse engineer the information in society, but it seems to me that information is open and public. Yes, there's a dark web, but I guess my question to kick things off is, what's that look like in terms of openness, secrecy, and obviously we're going to talk about misinformation, which is very open and prevalent, but also fake.
Yeah. Well, the lines are blurred. We've got 95% of Americans and 96% of Canadians on the internet. That's a lot of people online sharing information, sharing their personal views on things. And all of a sudden the lines are blurred between what's real, what's opinion, what's fact, what's fake. People are standing up their own websites claiming to be news agencies when they're not journalists at all, and they don't follow journalistic standards. So it's confusing, and everything is like muddled, and people are asking, how do we know what's truth versus fiction? How do we know what's real? And a lot of people are confused and they're frustrated because they don't know where to go for information. So they just either write it off or obtain all their news and information from social media, which is even worse.
Yeah.
I want to take this quickly, Marco, before you jump in, because I remember, and I don't know how long ago this was, a different conversation I had where somebody was saying that their children don't have one identity online. They have many, and they'll pick the persona that they want to portray at that given moment, sometimes multiple personas at once throughout the day. And I guess my point is with that is it's not just one device, one person, one identity, one persona. We have people acting as different things, and perhaps even intentionally or unintentionally playing different messages and different sides and different games.
Yep.
How do you see that in some of the things that you're exploring?
Well, in a professional capacity, we're looking at the authenticity behind accounts. We're looking for coordinated inauthentic activity. So any signs of, let's say, a PR company conducting illegal business, trying to create all these bot accounts and make people believe that they are, let's say, just normal consumers when really they're being paid to create fake accounts and try to change people's minds about things and sway their opinions about products in the market. So we look for coordinated, inauthentic activity. But on a personal level, I can tell you it's been pretty crazy on, let's say, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media, even on TikTok, to try to figure out who you're really engaging with. Sometimes I'm in like a Facebook neighborhood group, and I think that I'm talking to a neighbor, but really we have evidence that there have been foreign agents infiltrating local groups to try to sway opinions and divide Americans on things. And that's not just America, that's all over the world. So it's really interesting to see how all the way from, let's say somebody's trying to create a fake account because they want to pretend to be somebody else, let's say catfishing on a personal level, all the way up to like nation states using intelligence agents to sway opinions or divide, democratic societies. So it's really crazy. It's kind of confusing to figure out.
Well, it is really confusing. And I feel like sometimes people just answer like, well, you're entitled of your opinion. I'm entitled of my own opinion. But this is not an opinion. This is a fact. One thing is to have an opinion about a fact. Yeah. One thing is about deciding, no, I believe you can believe that
my opinion's fact.
Yeah, that the planet is round or
triangle
sphere, or triangle, and it's like, well, I'm gonna believe that.
Yeah.
And, well, we cannot have a civic conversation on that if you start with that, right? Like,
right.
So I feel like it's a different world compared of the one that we used to have even a few years ago, because in a way, lying has become a way of life. Politicians don't even pretend anymore. There's always been propaganda. There's always been like, let me tell that story my way. Now it's like right there in the open. Like, yes. So that's scary. And I feel like there are certain technology that are empowering this. I mean, we talked about not only the fake news, but, fake video, fake photo, fake report, fake newspaper and news agencies. So that influence also the conversation at a higher level. It's not just about the neighborhood. It's not just about my conversation with Sean and we go at it, right? It's like then you're going to go vote and you're going to change the opinion about other people and who is going to go to the government and what kind of international relationship they're going to have with others. So I just want to make this overview to say it's all connected in a democracy. Especially, it's all connected. So what's your take on that? And what can we do about it?
I think we're at a really important point in our history of technology where, let's say, okay, the United States created the World Wide Web. That's a fact. It was promoted as this free, open space for the exchange of information. It's going to empower people all over the world. It can be used for, keeping countries and organizations accountable for human rights violations, all different, great benefits, digital work, all this stuff. And it is great. And we want to keep it open and free. But we also have a crisis, a disinformation crisis, where we are trying to decide how much do we need to censor or keep accountability of the lies, of the fake images, of the fake videos? Do we censor it or do we just call it out? Maybe put a warning flag on it that says this has been proven to be false. And so we're at this place where it's kind of like countries and governments are trying to take charge and figure out what to do. The democratic countries, the Western free liberal order is going, hey, we need to keep this as open as possible. Earlier this year, the Biden administration, the White House put out like a declaration of the freedom of the internet, basically saying we want to promote a free, open exchange of information. And that is in direct response to authoritarian governments like China and Russia that are trying to nationalize the internet, and make everybody take, very strict control of like your portion of the internet, which was not the original intent of it. So there's kind of this ideological conflict going on in the world too, where the authoritarian governments and regimes are trying to convince, let's say, the developing parts of the world of like, hey, you should follow our model, take more control, censor what you don't like, squash pro-democracy protests if that goes against your regime. And then over here in America and in our Western allies are trying to push against that and say, no, let's keep it open so that people all over the world have access to the right information, real information, to enable them to make good decisions and have, freedom of the internet, basically. So I think it's an ideological thing, but it also comes down to what are we willing to do to, let's say, monitor or analyze or control it.
Yeah, and I don't know how deep I want to go with this. We'll see where it goes, I guess. But one thing I remember very clearly from our first conversation was the concept of micro internets.
Yeah.
And you raised that to me, and it's the first I'd heard of it, so at the grand scale, I think China has their own internet, right? But within regions, people have their own segments of the internet, or networks anyway, that provide them a place to share and transact and do whatever they're going to do there. And I guess within that, and we see that in, I don't know if I want to say it or not, but Truth Social, right, where it's a community creating a network where those folks who want to join that can share that information. And then we see other places where information may not make it to everybody because it is flagged as misinformation or disinformation. And others where it isn't flagged and it does make it, and the harm comes from that as it does. So I guess my question is, micro networks, micro internets, whatever you want to call them, and this idea that people can create their own little worlds if they want to, so they aren't censored, so they can share facts and non-facts as they feel to freely. How does that play into where things are headed?
I'm glad you asked that. I actually just finished a big research report, which should be out public soon. And it's about the technological decoupling process that is happening in the world. So it's like, okay, let's say Russia invaded Ukraine and corporations, some of them are complying with sanctions. Like, okay, we can't do business with certain companies in Russia. And sometimes that compromises the business. So they decide, let's just exit Russia altogether. Let's pull out of that market. Other companies do it to stand up for human rights. Like, the war on Ukraine is wrong, so we're going to pull our business out of Russia. So there's like many different ways to go about doing that, and why companies make those decisions. It's a business risk decision, basically. And I just did this research that's really fascinating about the history of ideological conflict between China and the US, but China and the greater world as well, and how many companies don't feel comfortable complying with the laws and the rules of the Communist Party of China. So they have decided to exit the Chinese market. And this research is all about like, what are the impacts on companies around the world, global enterprises? On one extreme, if they completely withdraw, which we're calling reshoring, like let's say they're reshoring, like bringing the business back to their home country or moving it to a neighboring country with less severe laws, that is very disruptive to the business, but it could be to their advantage security-wise. And on the other end, those companies that decide to stay inside those nations like Russia or China and have to comply with the government there and their laws, they could be at significant security risk for cyber espionage, for disinformation, data theft. by those governments. So it's really interesting from the corporate perspective, but it's even more interesting to hear from people that live within those societies. Their perspectives are very unique. Some of them say, well, I'm just used to it. I don't know what I don't know. Like if the Chinese government is censoring Google, Facebook, all these other companies, and I don't really know what I'm missing because we have native versions of these platforms where I get domestic news and information. So it's interesting sometimes to see how people's views are different on things like human rights violations and privacy, if they live in that little state-owned bubble of the internet. Whereas those of us that have free access to, let's say, the dark web, and you can see all kinds of stuff. You can even find, classified leaks of information. You can see what cyber criminals are doing and all kinds of information. Like there are people that log on to the dark web illegally from countries like China or Vietnam because they want to understand what's going on in the rest of the world. Interesting dynamics there, all the way from the personal level, all the way up to corporate.
Yeah, go ahead, Marco.
No, dude, if I start here, I'm never going to end. So you go.
All right. Well, I think because you touched on one point right at the very end, which was the individual. And yes, I can see in the scenarios that you presented, companies making decisions both for near-term sustainability, but perhaps even longer-term sustainability. And I'll make the connection to environmental, social, and governance (ESG) and some of the trends in that space, where consumers are asking the providers of their services and deliverers of the products to make those choices. So even if it is a tough choice for an organization to say, we're not interested in being part of that regime's control or follow those policies or be at risk for whatever misinformation might impact our business. Our customers are asking us to do that. Do you see much, perhaps, I don't know if you have a global view of this, but in the US versus other regions, are the consumers calling for this as well?
Yeah, we're seeing that, especially related to social media. US consumers and US social media users really put a lot of pressure on the platforms and the companies to be open and let them say what they want to say, because, well, for Americans, it always comes back to freedom of speech. And I think there's an interesting dynamic there. They're talking about a private company that can create whatever rules they want for their own platform. Nobody is really technically, and what's the word? They're not, they don't have like a right to say whatever they want on that platform. They don't even have the right to be a user on that platform if they break the platform's terms of service. So it's like there are rules. And I think Americans and many people in the free world is like, freedom of speech, I should be able to say whatever I want in this public forum. But it's a private company and a private platform that is accountable to the government in their country. So let's say,
is there a digital public forum? Because what you're describing then is whoever builds the tech, unless the government builds it, or if there's maybe that's what the call for a free open internet is globally. Yeah. Because I don't know. As soon as a company builds the tech, they control the narrative. Yeah. They're the rules anyway.
That's an interesting question too, because you've got, let's say, forums like Reddit, Quora, whatever, discussion forums that are on websites that are funded or sponsored by something. Let's even say it's a nonprofit, but they're hosted on somebody's infrastructure. So oftentimes the hosts are held responsible for, hey, what's being posted on this chat. Things can go awry pretty fast, like we've seen on 4chan or the Donald.win during the election season. They tout being a very open forum where you can pretty much say whatever you want. like the Chans or the Quins. However, once some really unsavory material starts being posted on there, then law enforcement gets involved. And that's when things get a little spicy. So I think it's interesting because you got the private company dynamic, and that's a definitely like a Western model of the internet. It's open to whatever, but if you break the law, we're going to hold you accountable for that. And that's where we're struggling is like, is it illegal to spread false information that leads to violence or that leads to an insurrection and illegal activity? Let's say swatting, when people prank call the police and say like there's something really bad happening at this house, and they send a SWAT team to that house when actually that thing was not true.
But then eventually they go do something else somewhere else because the SWAT teams it's been diverged, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I think I've heard of a journalist.
Extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
It's dangerous if they go in and the victim of the swatting is innocent and they're like got a gun and they're ready to defend their house, and all of a sudden a SWAT team comes in, people can get killed. I can't recall if that has resulted in death, but I'm sure there's been some major incidents. So it's like, at what point does false information become violence? And as a professional analyst looking for this stuff, that's where our focus is like, when does an idea become extreme? And when does this extremism turn into radicalism, where all of a sudden large parts of our population are believe something untrue and becoming violent as a result of that? That's where we're trying to minimize the impact of disinformation and raise awareness so we can like kind of shake people out of it and say, no, this is not true. Don't go do this violent thing. It's not worth it.
Well, I always go back to, maybe because it's my political science background, but I go back to the social contract that we have when we live together, and where, your freedom ends or has a limit where you infringing and invading my freedom to do something. Mm-hmm. And you can apply this to pretty much anything, from wearing a mask to lying out loud to intruding in other people's property, because if you're like, well, it's my freedom to come in your property, but it is my freedom to have my own property. So somebody has to enforce that. Yeah. And where I'm going with this is that with the internet and the social media, we kind of find ourselves, I think, in a position where we kind of are renegotiating this social contract as we go. There are things that we didn't expect that were possible 20, 30 years ago. There was like newspapers that are licensed newspaper. And if you're going to pretend to be a newspaper, people would say, well, okay, you have the freedom to do this, but you're not recognized as a newspaper, so you're not a legitimate source of information. And people will be educated about that, and there will be a civil responsibility for what you do as a journalist. And so now I feel like there's this like kind of like Far West with no rules, and we're trying to figure out what to do.
It's like the Wild West.
And this is my question for you is, one thing is to choose like, okay, I'm going to go in this social media platform because everybody's like me and I just want to hear that. I'm going to join a community, whatever you want, of like-minded people.
Yeah.
They're saying exactly what I want to hear. It's amazing.
Exactly. But this, we've always done that. That's why you're a member of a club or member of a community. And, that's very much human.
Yeah.
But what is not eventually human is when this is a lie because maybe it's manipulated by another state. Maybe by doing that, you're manipulating information, elections, and all of that. And I'm connecting again to where we started years ago. Like, where do you find the attribution of this? It's just some crazy dude that created a club of, the Hellfires Club or whatever it is, or is actually an instrument of another country that is invading, culturally your own domain?
Well, I think the answer to this is why cybersecurity analysts have been enlisted to analyze disinformation, because it happens on digital infrastructure. Oftentimes, attribution comes down to what infrastructure are they using? Where is it hosted? And for me, what I like to do is narrative analysis. I like to focus in on the story. And that's more of a psychological operations thing. Like in the military, we have a history of doing psyops. It's, winning the hearts and minds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what China's really good at right now around the world, is influencing the world towards positive views of the CCP and the communist way of governance. And I say that because I specialize in China, so that's where my focus is. So I focus in on what narrative is being told that benefits the CCP, and they have standards. They talk about it in their policies and their documents. They outline very clearly, like, here's our propaganda strategy, and oftentimes the narratives align with those strategies. So for me, I'm looking at who's telling these stories, who does it benefit, and then we kind of hone in on the inauthentic accounts. So for us, it's like kind of pairing together the factors, like what infrastructure are they using? If it's also, we know that we know that this network is using the same IP addresses and some fake news sites, and it's all hosted on Russian IP addresses and infrastructure that their cyber attacks also come from, then we're like, okay, there's a likelihood, and we use analytical language, like a high likelihood that this is a Russian state-sponsored operation, because it's the same narrative they've been telling. It benefits them in this way. It's hosted on this infrastructure. There's a variety of factors that we take into consideration. And like each nation, each of these nation state threats, they have their own little signatures about how they do things. Russia is really great at using forged documents. They create all kinds of fake videos, fake photos, and forged documents to create the appearance of things that are not actually happening, that make their enemies look bad. And that's what they do in our elections as well. They'll do hack and leak operations and things like that to reveal secrets and coerce and manipulate their adversaries. China's really good at using a global network of influencers that they pay to promote a positive view of China and deny human rights violations that are actually happening in real life. So they each have their own little signature. We just try to combine all these different factors into a big picture look of how are they conducting this operation, what is their objective, and how can we disrupt it?
Right. So let me go right here, because in Redefining Society, I am imagine, and I know that our audience may not be the expert cybersecurity professional in the community, right? And it's more the everyday person.
Mm-hmm.
And so just the idea of understanding how there could be a walled internet in China, when we know the internet is open, it could be very, very hard to understand. Yeah. So without going too deep, can you explain in a very simple language, how is this even possible? And what is the technology that can be used to do that? And what is the technology that can be used, like, the dark web, to evade from it?
Yeah.
I'm guessing this could be a question in some listener right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's a great question. Imagine that your internet is just very limited to news and sources that your government approves of. And all of the companies that fill your internet with information are also either sponsored by the government or partially owned by the government. And nobody's allowed to put any information out that makes the government look bad. No bad talking of government leaders.
But if the internet is open, how do you block that?
Right.
So
like they have, okay, the
not
actual
like a border.
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
it
what?
is
Why?
very much
How?
like an internet border wall. They call it the Great Firewall, which is, a take on the Great Wall of China.
Right.
And the way they have it set up is data centers all over China, where they filter all the information on the internet through those data centers. And they block certain websites, they block certain applications, and they have probably, I'm going to guess, thousands of government employees that are paid to detect and censor certain information from forums and social media and the internet that they are allowed to use. So the government has eyes all over the internet within China. And immediately, even if conversations are using code words to criticize the party or to criticize, Xi Jinping, the president, they will immediately remove that from the internet, delete it. Sometimes they will delete your account. And if they find out who you are talking bad about the government, they decrease your social credit score, which is basically used to approve you for loans, to approve you for a home, all different types of things. So they have this system of consequences if you don't follow the rules. And that includes internet. That includes internet.
That's incredible. And I mean, you point out that there are government employees monitoring this stuff too. And I can only imagine it doesn't just stop at monitoring and blocking. They probably use that to their advantage to create additional content and maybe counter messages that are coming in. And perhaps even change them and let them through in a positive way.
Like one good example is the Chinese government's response to COVID-19. They controlled the pandemic very well up until the Olympics because they really wanted to host a successful Winter Olympics, which they did. But once the Olympics was over, they dealt with the onset of the Omicron variant, or Omicron, however you pronounce it. And they're still battling huge outbreaks where they're shutting down entire cities of millions of people. So they're still doing very strict lockdowns, sometimes locking down entire factories or business buildings and locking everybody in for days at a time. They have like COVID lockdown camps where they isolate people in individual cells that are very much like jail cells. So as you can imagine, after months and months of this and their zero COVID policy, the Chinese people are getting frustrated. They're upset. It's disrupting family, work, finances, economy, all this stuff. So if they go on the internet and they start talking, criticizing the government's COVID-19 policy, it's immediately censored, but they're also targeted for further law enforcement surveillance. And there's a lot of outspoken journalists who are banned from China. I could go on and on. The consequences are pretty severe.
So what are the chances? What are the chances that this is going to hold? There's that saying that the truth eventually will come out. That the oppression eventually will create a rebellion and so forth. And I'm just saying, in general, in a world so connected, it's very hard to think that they'll succeed in a very long run to stop this truth from coming out.
Yeah.
The technology.
That's a really good point. And you mentioned earlier the counter narrative. So what they tell the people in China is like, we are being a responsible government, taking control of this to help us in the long term. And they criticize the United States for not handling it well, actually for being the worst in the world. That's what they say, because we've had so many deaths from COVID-19. And so they promote within China, they talk bad about liberal countries that, just kind of they don't have strict rules on wearing masks or testing. And they definitely brag on their own system of being more responsible. And they say, oh, the rest of the world is worried about human rights. Well, how can they say that when they've let over 1 million people die from COVID-19? So it's this whataboutism they play back and forth. And within China, I don't know if there's a general consensus, but that's what they're hearing. That's the story they're hearing is we have to do what's right for our country, for our people. So wear a mask, stay in when you're sick, lock down when you're told to lock down, just obey the rules because this is what's good in the long run.
So, but this narrative, it repeats. Now I'm going back to smaller group. Like we went from small to global to now we're going to go back to smaller again, but not too small. I'm thinking elections in a country like parties. They always try to bring their own narrative. I mean, I'm looking at it right now in Italy that we have yet again another election coming up because they were not happy with that government, and of course there is the left, there is the right, and everybody has his own narrative about if they win, this will happen. If we win, this will happen, and you should be scared. So it's not just China. I mean, China, it's impressive because it's such a large country, such an important role in our economy. Like, a company that decide to leave China, they also leave a lot of business. That's for sure. A lot of infrastructure that they created in the past 30, 40, 50 years or so. But even at a local level, where I want to go is there is always this dynamic of, let me tell you my story. Believe my story, listen to my story. So until we can prove that your story is fake or a lie or a semi-lie, then I can't open people's eyes, right? The problem is that sometimes people's eyes stay closed even when you've splattered the truth in front of them.
Yes.
Right? So, for example, technology like fake videos, deep fakes that I was reading not like 2 days ago, and how now they're really turning mainstream and they're very, very hard to detect.
Yeah.
And this is not just about making an old actor coming back to life in a movie. This is about putting president on a stage saying something that it never said.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about where are we going with this and how the security community it's a battle in this.
Yeah. These deepfake videos and photos are produced with technology. They're produced with algorithms, photos, all different kinds of data. So we are literally trying to combat it with technology. We're creating counter programs and counter algorithms to detect when things are fake or to detect anomalies in the code that, I mean, it sounds so matrixy, doesn't it?
But
we're trying
true.
to identify those weird
but
weird
it's
things.
True. That's the scary part.
Something's not right in this code. Like a video would normally look like this, but this one looks different. This one looks like it was pasted together like a Frankenstein video.
Yeah, too perfect or too imperfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see that in the construction of the video. I mean, the end result is flawless. Almost.
It is flawless. I watched a video the other day of this young lady who I don't even know what she does for a living, but she found all these different open sources, like tools in the internet that are free to use to compile a photo and a video that looks so real. She created this fake person. It's a man with her personality and her quirks and things. She recorded herself doing these video motion things, put a different person's face on it, like not a real person, but a digitally created fake face. And she created a video in a room that looked so convincing. I could not tell it was fake.
The singing voice, Tom Cruise. Have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, that's so crazy. So it's so real that when you're watching news or you're watching a YouTube video, let's say, oh, I want to subscribe to this guy's podcast. Finding out that guy is not a real person would be devastating. Like you're literally getting catfished on a podcast or a video. It's devastating. It's really difficult to detect. So as soon as somebody suspects something is wrong with it, if they report it to the platform, it gives us analysts and researchers an opportunity to look into it and prove it right or wrong. But here's the danger. People believe what they see and hear first and what they see and hear the most. So if a bad guy or a threat actor convinces you, like gets that thing out there on social media and it goes viral, that's a danger to your society, because all of a sudden all these people are believing the information that this fake character is putting out. And I'm concerned about how this is going to translate into virtual reality. I've got a 12-year-old daughter who uses Oculus to play VR games. And I've already seen a lot of security issues that I'm very concerned about for her personal safety. Because even if you're not like actually physically engaging with somebody in these games, it feels like a violation of your personal space when they're coming at you or when they're engaging with you. So I'm concerned about these fake videos and images turning into characters in virtual reality. It's like, you have a huge audience there to influence people of something, whatever that objective is.
And even if one doesn't care about your personal space being invaded, the platform is collecting everything about you.
That's true.
So that it could create another version of you if they wanted to. Yeah,
it's true.
That looks and sounds and acts and says, "Oh shit," at this particular point when it scares you or whatever. And maybe that's a whole nother conversation we could get into. I want to. I don't know how much longer we want to go here, but I want to bring it kind of back to the attribution point, because we just talked about somebody creating someone or something pretending to be real that's not, and we tend to believe it, right, until we don't. Mm-hmm. We're told not to, and even then perhaps we don't even. But Marco mentioned it earlier, people, notably politicians, will say things, whatever they can and want to meet their end game, which is to get reelected or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I guess where I want to go with this is people, they are attributed, they are real, right? They have the little blue check on the platform, and people know them, and they can see that they are who they are, and they're saying whatever they want to say, real or not. Mm-hmm. And then, so that in itself is a problem. But then there's the explosion of that message, retweeted, reposted, brought to other platforms and linked back, and now it becomes a source of information across other platforms, reaching other people, typically through technology like bots and things like that. So how do we combat that from a societal perspective? Because I think generally we want to believe, right? And we're going to trust who we trust, and whatever message that is that we believe and that we hear from that trusted source that gets amplified, it's only going to continue to reinforce our perspective. So is there a way to counter scale things? I don't know if anti-bots is perhaps one thing, but is there a way to anti-scale this stuff?
Education.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we have a clear answer on this yet, but I know it's being addressed from several different points of view. Digital platforms are working towards automatically flagging certain information that is spreading virally and being reported as disinformation. A lot of them are relying on really good nonpartisan, unbiased fact checking from outside organizations that are neutral. And I think that's really important. As researchers, we are fact checkers, but we also rely on other fact checkers to check us. Like, we compare our analysis to theirs. Like, okay, yes, this is with high confidence, this is false information. And I think that helps. I've been reading some academic research lately. We've got a lot of colleges and universities all over the world that are tackling this problem and putting their heads together with the private sector and with governments around the world. Like, how do we address this holistically? And a lot of those involve interventions on social media, which is a flag or something below the post that says, this has been flagged as false information, read here for more. Or it opens up a whole video on, this is all the data we compiled to prove that this is not true. And also there's interventions that say, are you sure you want to share this? This has been proven to be untrue. And studies are showing that people will, more often than not, they will not amplify that post if they read the information that proves it's wrong. So that gives me a little bit of hope. Awareness, like Marco said, it's education. We're trying to, put out free information that's easy for people to understand on why this is a danger to our world, to our society, to our democracy, and how they can help individually by not amplifying, that false information.
Yeah. So I see that working where it's something is presenting a fact, or something happened, some research was done. Where it gets a little scarier for me is when it's not a fact-driven point. Mm-hmm. It's an opinion or a mindset or just some general message that isn't rooted in information. It's just somebody wants to say something meaningful, hateful, counteractive, counterintuitive, whatever it is. And there's nothing to check it against. It's that person saying something that, again, people trust that person, or they believe in their beliefs of that person, and therefore they're going to run with whatever is said. And it's not rooted in any data, so there's nothing to fact check against. And it, to me, is that mindset of society, which happens to be very polarized in the U.S. and
you're right.
I think being even more polarized on the global stage as well.
Yeah, not everybody's open to hearing opposing views or hearing that the information they're sharing or believing is not true. Right. They're not always open to that. I always tell people, if you're reading something on social media and it's creating some very negative emotions in you, like you're getting angry, frustrated, you want to fight about it, take a break, come back to it later when you're not frustrated and emotional. Maybe do a little fact checking on your own and just look for like legitimate, trustworthy sources. And I always encourage people to look at the media bias chart and try to get your information from news organizations that are less biased and more truthful and factual in their reporting. I find those to be great sources of fact checking.
But those aren't sensational, and they don't feel as good as the other ones that are biased.
Right.
Well, I love this conversation, and that's why I'm looking at 52 minutes of us going at this, and I love it because we could be having this sitting in a coffee shop and just chatting about this. I hope people enjoy our conversation. I want to end it with a couple of thoughts, if you don't mind. One is about the future, and one is about the past. I have a Roman reference for it. So the future is, I like the fact that the community has tools to find out what technology is being used to fake something. And I think that's great. I'm thinking, you said university, colleges of studying this, researcher, and I'm assuming hopefully with artificial intelligence and machine learning, we can even fact check even faster. And that's great. But when you tell someone that is a lie and they still want to believe it, I don't know what to do about that. So I'm going to refer to the past. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but in a square in Rome, there is a circular statue, and it's called La Bocca della Verità, the mouth of truth. And the legend says that if you put your hand in this mouth that represent a god, if you're a liar or if you say a lie while your hand's in it there, the mouth will shut and it cut your hand. And there is actually in the movie Roman Holiday, there is a scene with Gregory Peck and Audrey Hepburn. And so my point is, maybe it's our nature that is going to resolve this problem in the end, because I think that even if we lie, there's nothing we respect more than the truth. Yeah. And maybe we kind of forgot that. Maybe because it gives us the moment of fame on social media, maybe because taking an opinion, a position, even if it's wrong, it gives you those 600 likes and retweets and shit like that. But in the end, we're screwing our society. So I hope that we all come together in the end. And maybe we create some of this mouth of truth and take a risk and say, well, if I lie, my hand's gone. Bye-bye.
I believe truth will win in the end. And I think that's because we have a lot of people around the world that want to hold each other accountable for the truth. So I'm hopeful.
Yeah.
Here's some truth I'm going to bestow upon you. I am thrilled that we met you, Charity.
Oh,
so many years ago.
Same.
And I'm glad that we've been able to keep in touch and have these continued conversations. I'm also going to say that some of the best food experiences I've had were in Singapore.
He's not lying. He's not lying.
I don't know if you can fact check that or not, but
I was
in
there.
my experience, that is true.
That's my position on it. So, yeah, and then nobody respects me, so who cares? So that
survey says that is not disinformation. That is true.
So no, but in all seriousness, this is important stuff, and it's not gonna. If there is a resolution, it's not gonna happen overnight, and who knows what it's gonna look like. But to your point, Marco, education. Even if we can't educate on every single point that needs to be evaluated, I think generally educating folks that this is the story at the moment is an important thing. And I'm thankful, Charity, that you help us bring this to folks to raise awareness for it. So,
my pleasure. Thank you guys so much. It's always great to talk to y'all.
Awesome. And for everybody listening, we hope you enjoy our little chat here, make you think. That's when we think it's a successful podcast. And I think there is a lot to think about what we said in these 56 minutes and going. And so stay tuned. There'll be more conversations and a few notes here if you want to get in touch with Charity and follow her on our social media. Just check the notes. And stay with us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
BugCrowd's award-winning platform combines actionable contextual intelligence with the skill and experience of the world's most elite hackers to help leading organizations identify and fix vulnerabilities, protect customers, and make the digitally connected world a safer place. Learn more at bugcrowd.com. Black Cloak provides concierge cybersecurity protection to corporate executives and high net worth individuals to protect against hacking, reputational loss, financial loss, and the impacts of a corporate data breach. Learn more at blackcloak.io.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you learned something new and this podcast made you think, then share ITSPmagazine.com with your friends, family, and colleagues. If you represent a company and wish to associate your brand with our conversations, sponsor one or more of our podcast channels. We hope you will come back for more stories and follow us on our journey. You can always find us at the intersection of technology, cybersecurity, and society.